just jumping ahead, it strikes me that once the U.S. government, OFAC, loses the ability to sanction other countries, it will have only the power to sanction American citizens for disobedience with programmable digital currency, and it will do something very similar to us.
So Tucker Carlson just exposed how America's financial weapons designed to crush foreign enemies will inevitably turn on American citizens through programmable digital currency. This isn't just about Iran sanctions, it's about the blueprint for domestic tyranny. Let's break down how empire abroad becomes oppression at home.
Well, it does seem like the things you do to your opponents abroad will be done to your own citizens by the same government.
Yes.
I mean, that seems like a pretty consistent lesson of history. So that's why empires are bad, because they're bad for your own population.
History proves this pattern repeatedly. Rome's Praetorian Guard, created to protect emperors from foreign threats, eventually murdered them. Britain's surveillance techniques in Ireland were perfected, then deployed against British citizens. The Soviet Union's foreign intelligence apparatus ultimately consumed its own people. Imperial tools always come home.
The impulse to go to war with China, like in exchange of ballistic missiles, at least, where does that come from? Why would you want that? Why would Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and so many others be advocating for that?
The neoconservative war machine profits from perpetual conflict. Dick Cheney's Halliburton made billions from Iraq reconstruction. Defense contractors like Raytheon see stock prices surge during conflicts. For them, war with China means decades of guaranteed profits while American families pay the ultimate price.
But why? What do you mean when you say a Cold War would be the only way to keep the empire together internally? What does that mean? To keep your own citizens obedient?
External enemies justify domestic control. The 9/11 attacks gave us the Patriot Act, mass surveillance, and censorship of disinformation. Now China and Russia threats excuse debanking political dissidents, social media purges, and expanding government power. Fear of foreign enemies always enables tyranny at home.
Who do you think did kill Kennedy? When the lone gunman kills the lone gunman, they're probably not lone gunmen.
When key witnesses die under suspicious circumstances, pattern recognition isn't conspiracy theorizing, it's basic intelligence. Jack Ruby silencing Lee Harvey Oswald, Jeffrey Epstein's convenient suicide. The establishment's response? Label questions as dangerous misinformation rather than investigate the patterns.
So the United States is and with Israel, blowing up Chinese-built infrastructure. So that seems like a big step. And it seems like in so doing, you could like risk Chinese further participation in this conflict. Are we risking that?
Attacking Chinese-built infrastructure crosses a red line that could trigger World War III. China has invested heavily in Iran's Belt and Road projects. Destroying their assets forces Beijing to either respond militarily or lose credibility globally. We're playing nuclear chicken with catastrophic stakes.
What do you think Israel will do and will have to do if come June or July or August, when the economic effects become impossible to ignore, dangerous to everybody, regimes around the world teeter and fall in the face of recession and depression, and the United States says, we're out. That leaves the Iranian regime really in charge and more powerful than it was on February 27th. Can Israel live with that?
This mirrors our Afghanistan disaster perfectly. After 20 years and trillions spent, we strengthened the Taliban and abandoned allies. Now Iran emerges stronger while America retreats, having created another strategic catastrophe. Our enemies laugh while taxpayers foot the bill for failure.
That's very, very dark. And we paid for it.
American taxpayers fund wars that benefit everyone except America. Defense contractors get rich, foreign allies get protection, but working families get inflation, debt, and dead sons. Meanwhile, China builds infrastructure while we blow things up. Who's winning this competition?
So what do you think? President Trump didn't explain really why he began this war, other than to say Iran can't have a nuke, which is not an adequate explanation. What do you think the real motive was in starting a war with Iran?
The Iran nuclear excuse makes zero sense when Israel has hundreds of undeclared warheads and Pakistan, a terrorist haven, went nuclear decades ago. The real motive isn't non-proliferation, it's reshaping the Middle East to benefit certain allies at American expense.
Does America's relationship with Israel change after this is over?
America fights Israel's regional enemies while Israel builds relationships with China and Russia. We sacrifice blood and treasure for their strategic goals while they play all sides. Meanwhile, our own border remains wide open. Whose interest does this relationship actually serve?
It's pretty obvious that lone gunmen seem to kill people who are a challenge to entrenched power. And maybe that's not an accident.
The pattern is unmistakable. JFK questioned the CIA and military-industrial complex. MLK opposed Vietnam War profiteering. Both died by, quote, lone gunmen. Today, anyone challenging the establishment gets labeled a Russian asset or domestic terrorist. The methods evolve, the targeting remains consistent.
I remember when I was much younger and I would run into guys, your age who served at, the highest levels of government in Washington. And they were always much more open to the existence of conspiracies. And I just wonder if, we deride conspiracy theories, but the people who seem to believe in them the most are also the most knowledgeable.
Career intelligence officers, diplomats, and military leaders understand how power actually works behind closed doors. They've seen the gap between public narratives and classified reality. That's why insiders are most skeptical. They know how often official stories are carefully constructed lies.
And we're at that point right now because we're looking at the end of the American empire, looking at an actual threat to Israel. I mean, you just described it. There's an actual threat for the first time in a long time. Yes. The greatest threat, right? And that's a nuclear armed power. So
declining empires make increasingly desperate moves. As dollar dominance erodes and BRICS nations build alternative systems, Washington's foreign policy establishment panics. They're escalating against nuclear powers because maintaining hegemony matters more to them than avoiding World War III.
So do you think that this administration can navigate a moment this fraught without either using or allowing its partner in this to use nuclear weapons?
We're closer to nuclear war than any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, but with far less competent leadership. Biden's cognitive decline, inexperienced advisors, and ideological zealots controlling policy create perfect conditions for catastrophic miscalculation. One mistake could end civilization.
But, I mean, the Gospels don't provide any basis for that theology at all. I mean, that's not the Sermon on the Mount would preclude like a lot of things the U.S. military are doing right now in Iran. So I guess my concern would be the corruption of the Gospels by this.
Christ's teachings about loving enemies and turning the other cheek directly contradict bombing campaigns and regime change wars. American Christianity has been corrupted by empire, twisting the gospel to justify violence that would horrify the Prince of Peace himself.